So seems like we can start. One more time, welcome everyone to our webinar. Today we'll discuss very interesting topic, how to use very fast memory analysis to search for traces of commodity malware. And we'll discuss why it's actually important and why we need to pay attention to commodity malware itself. Before we start, give me 1 second, please. Yeah. Before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Svetlana, and I'm a digital forensics trainer at Digital Forensics and Incident Response Lab at Group IB. So let's discuss some technical stuff. First of all, your micro will be turned off during this webinar. So if you have any questions or comments, please use your chat to communicate with us. Also, we are doing recording. So after the webinar, you will have the email with recordings and with all of the additional materials. I think that's it. So if you have any questions for now, you already can send everything in the chat, and also let us know if you have any problems with sound or with slides. Let's start with some latest news. And I think there are lots of different posts and different announcements about actions of ransomware operators, and this is actually one of the hottest topics during the last year for sure. And actually, as we can see from our practice, the number of such attacks using ransomware is growing every time. And about 2 weeks ago, we actually got information about the highest ransom ever. So there was an attack on Acer company, and as you can see just from these slides, ransomware operators asked them to pay pretty nice amount of dollars, right? So it was one of the highest ransomware attacks during the last year. And why actually we are talking about ransomware, how this is connected to our topic and to commodity malware. That's a problem because everyone already knows about ransomware operators, different families, and everyone tries to get the idea how to prevent such attacks and how we can protect our organizations against ransom. But the first step of ransom very often is just usual infection with the like usual malware, usual trojans. So the first step for us to protect our organization or users is to track infections with the bots. And as you can see from this slide, bots are the first step for many ransomware families. For example, if you have like, some information about infection with a Trickbot, you should pay attention because as a result, you can get Rook Conti or R-Evil, whatever. And from latest news, like HuntStore malware is also started to drop some serious things such as Zeppelin or Kuba. So you for sure need to pay attention to this malware. And we will start with some brief discussion of TTPs that are used by these botnets. So the first step, as usual, is initial access, just to make sure that you understand correctly all of the slides here in the beginning. In the beginning, you can see the name of tactic and also some techniques that marked here. You can search them after our webinar with MITRE ATT&CK matrix, but I'll try to explain it in a very easy way. So initial access for botnets, mostly everything starts with phishing. Still, we have phishing as the most useful attack vector for botnet operators. And here we actually saw a lot of different phishing campaigns that were related with spreading of DocuSign documents, usual docx formats, or archives with some malicious files inside, or malicious links, so everything just as usual. For execution, there were actually several techniques that were used by attackers. And here I want to actually discuss some real examples on malware itself. For example, the first technique, which is command and scripting interpreter usage, we were able to see that lots of different families use this technique. For example, Dridex uses PowerShell to download its initial payload, and Emotet also uses CMD execution. You can see it on the slide on the right side, to bypass some security controls. So there were several launches of CMD, and after all, the PowerShell was running again. Also, use of Windows API, kind of popular technique for botnet operators, and Windows API actually was used by lots of different families to create new processes or to perform code injections. That is also very popular. And even VMI is also used by botnet operators and by some malware, for example, Emotet as well, using VMI to download initial payload. The next step is persistence, and here again we have several techniques. Most of these techniques are pretty standard ones, such as usage of run case or startup folders that are used by Trickbox, for example, and modifications on winload key in registry that was used by buzzer loaders. So it's pretty standard techniques. Also, installation of new services, still one of the top of techniques that were used by botnet operators. And for example, Emotet and Trickbot, both of them can install new services to get persistence. Scheduled tasks are also not out of the top, and Qakbot, for example, creates the scheduled task to get persistence. So we can pay attention to these techniques via our during our express analysis to get some information about persistence mechanisms. The next step is privilege escalation, that also can be used by different botnet families. And here, for example, Trickbot can modify registry to bypass user account control. But most of the times, botnet operators use different kinds of injections, such as TLL injection, process hollowing, or even process doppelganging to escalate the privilege in system. Also, there are lots of techniques that are used to evade defense. And here you can see several examples. Most of them are related to different kinds of encoding, encryptions, or packing. But also, we noticed from recent attacks that lots of malware families started to assign the binaries with legitimate certificates. So it's also kind of trend for them. For lateral movement, most of the botnet operators use different types of encryption. They use creation of encrypted channels. They use TLS, SSL to encrypt their traffic. Some of the operators use different encodings to hide the code from others. For example, they can use XOR or base64. Some of the operators, for example, Handstore operators, they're using compression algorithms to hide themselves. So that's pretty nice for us. And how we can actually convert this information about TTPs to our topic, to memory markers. First of all, we need to pay attention to remote connections that are created by system processes. For example, Explorer, right? Because this is one of the standard ways to inject code there and create some network connections, or to create some SVC host instances and use them to connect to some command and control servers to get the payload. So we need to pay attention to network connections. We also need to pay attention to creation of such processes as RunDLL or Regosphere, because these processes are usually created by some commodity malware during the initial executions, especially when we have these processes related to processes of Windows, Word, or Excel application. Also, for sure, we need to pay attention to PowerShell and CMD processes, especially if they are running with some obfuscated command lines. So we need to try to somehow get information about these command lines and their content. Also, we need to pay attention to process injections, as I just mentioned. It's very popular technique, and most of the commodity malware families use pretty standard processes such as Explorer or SVC host to inject the some malicious payload. And also, we need to pay attention to some executables that are launched from non-standard locations, and those executables that are launched via some scheduler tasks, services, or run keys. And let's take a look how we can do this brief analysis in a very fast way. For today, we're going to use Process Hacker. This is a pretty nice tool that allows us to see information about all of the processes that are running in our system, as well as different services, network connections that are created by these processes and services, and also some information about disk usage. So if some of the processes write something on disk or read some files, we will be able to see this information just from here. We'll start with the check of network connections. Just here we have this network tab in which we have information about processes that initiated different network connections. We are able to see the protocols, ports that are used, and we are able to see some remote addresses. So it's pretty nice for us if we have, for example, a list of known bad IP addresses, or if we can, in the very fast way, check somewhere if these IP addresses are legitimate or not. And here, for example, we can notice this stuff, like Explorer that creates some remote connections, and we can, in a very fast way, check this IP address. Even if you don't have some specific tools, you can use the open source ones, such as VirusTotal, for example, to get information about this IP address, its holder, and some additional information about is it something malicious or not. So here we have Explorer, we have process ID here. So this is 6324, and we can proceed with process list and try to get information about this specific process. So we have actually here two instances of Explorer, and we can check information about the location from where these executables were running. And if we'll compare these instances, we'll notice that the first Explorer is running just from C Windows, but the second one is running from C Windows and this specific directory. So it's kind of nice, especially because we don't have any like child processes. So we can try to check what is this, what the Explorer process running in our system. And for that purpose, we can just double click on this line and we'll get information about some additional properties of this process. Here we can see information about statistics, like how many resources this process is using, and also we can see information about threads running in memory of this process. We can see the memory itself, all of the memory regions that are related to this process. We can see information about handles, environment, like whatever we actually need. And here we need actually tab with memory. So what kind of information useful for us we can easily obtain from here? We could see information about protection flags. And here for us, the main interesting flags are WRX, which means that these regions can be executed, and process have read, write, execute actually privilege for these regions. So we can just sort this column and search for these regions. For example, just like here, we have several regions that could be used for some malicious purposes, and we can also just by double clicking see these regions. And for some of them we will not see some additional information. By the way, why we are paying attention to these specific regions, because we have one interesting rule, very simple one. If some pages are marked like read, write, execute, they will need to have some image on disk. So here we have in the use column this path to executable itself. So we have image that's related to these specific pages. But here in other strings, we don't have this image. That means that there could be some injections. That's why we need to analyze these specific regions. And as I said, just by double clicking, we can get information about these regions itself. And here we can find, for example, something just like this. So we have MZ header. That means that after that some executable code is going, and here we can see the pretty standard phrase like this program cannot be run in DOS mode. So we can see here that something was injected. And the interesting thing that we can save actually this region for further analysis, or for example we can proceed with malware analysis, and to get some more information, we can proceed with some debuggers or other techniques. But since we decided to get some very fast idea of what's going on and to perform express analysis, we will not save anything from now. We will use another interesting functionality of the process hacker, and we will use actually strings that are located just here in the right angle. So we can use strings to get information about different Unicode symbols in these memory regions, and we can use filters from here. So we can filter all of these strings to get some specific information. For example, we can search for some file locations, or we can search for IP addresses. And that's nice because we can get information about all of the IP addresses that are related to this specific case. So let's try to create the simple filter here for detection of some HTTP or HTTPS inclusions in these strings. And just by applying this filter, we already can get information about several requests. We can see the name of PHP page that was requested, and we can see information about lots of IP addresses that were used here. And we can actually again check these IP addresses with VirusTotal or something similar if you're still not sure that this is malicious, so we can check it. Anyhow, just from here, in several pretty easy steps, we can get information about a list of IP addresses that are used by some malware, and we can get information about specific pages that were requested. Also from here, just by searching or just by applying other filters, we can get information even about commands that were executed. So we can search for standard keywords such as CMD, PowerShell, or we even can try to search for some specific arguments that are usually used by attackers. From here, for example, we can get information about ping that was running via CMD. Also, it's pretty nice that we can see handles from here, and we can search for some specific locations, specific files that are used by this specific process. And here, for example, just by searching for handles, we can get information about named pipe that is used by our malicious explorer. That is also very helpful. And in case if we want to see some information about these specific files or just to check file locations, we can proceed with the general like, host analysis, and we can just go to these specific locations and to see what kind of files we can find there. And again, we can proceed with malware analysis, or we can analyze these files by ourselves, or we can try to use sandboxes, for example, to get more information about these specific files. Also, if we found something interesting, as just we did before, like information about IP addresses, information about some code injections, very nice techniques that we could use here is to just run something like autoruns, or just check some standard techniques of persistence manually. But autoruns actually is pretty good way to limit our time of manual searching of something, because it collects already all of the information for us. And here we can see, for example, that by our specific malware, we see that several techniques actually were used. For example, Taskscaler was used to create these scalar tasks to run the executable that we saw on the previous slide. Or here, for example, we can see also run key that was used, and all of the keys that were here before, the value was changed to run again this executable, and also several keys were created again to load this specific executable. If you want to have more information about ransomware and different TTPs that are used by ransomware operators or botnet operators, you can check our brand new report, like Ransomware Uncovered, for 2020 and 2021. So you can use these QR codes to download the report, or you can join the webinar that will be tomorrow to get more information from the first people who created this report. And also, if you want to know a bit more about how you can use different tools and different techniques to get more information about malware, about processes that are running on your system, you can visit our course. The closest ones will be launched in April and May, so you can check out our courses by these QR codes or just via our website. We have actually different courses on malware analysis, on the incident response. So for example, if you will just take a look at your system and found something suspicious and you will not know what to do with it, we can teach you how to handle this incident and what kind of actions you can do to protect yourself or to investigate this. We also have courses on digital forensics, so if you want to dive deeper into this topic and to get some ideas about memory analysis or host-based analysis, you can also take a look at these courses. Also, you can use this promo code Forget Me Not to get your discount for our courses. Yep, and that's it for today. So if you have any questions, it's time to ask them. So you can use your chat to let us know. Okay, so we have several questions. The first one, can you please share also the presentation or the report for predictions as well? You can use, first of all, this QR code for predictions and some information about ransomware operations. And if you need some general information, you can visit our official website, and there we have our trends report, you can also find some other predictions not related to ransomware. So this information is open and you can easily get it from our website. Another question, other tools we demonstrated open source. Yes, all of the tools, they are open source, so you can just get them via Googling. Process Hacker, yeah, you can use just Google to download it. Autoruns is a part of sysinternals, which is standard set of tools, so you can also easily download them. And all of the tools that we are using during our courses, they are also open source. So if you will be interested, you will be able to use everything without like paying some money for tools. Will the recording of the webinar send to listeners? Yeah, as we said in the very beginning, this recording will be sent to you after the webinar, so you will be able to see it one more time to get information that you need, so everything you want. I'd like to know detailed process of the analysis you made. Let's say that for some specific details, you can just use my email from here, so you can text me directly and we'll discuss any details. Or if you want to know more information about malware analysis and analysis of memory, you can also take a look to our courses, because we have pretty nice materials on that topic. Let me check for any other questions. What information security level should I have to pass your training courses? That's a good question. Actually, we have several levels of our courses for incident response, for digital forensics as well. So you don't have to have some specific knowledge for that. And like standard knowledge in IT is enough to pass our first level courses. Are there other tools that you can use for similar analysis? Yeah, for sure. There are lots of different open source tools that you can use. You can create actually the full memory dumps, or you can create just dumps of processes that looks suspicious for you, and you can perform this analysis with volatility. You can use like the standard utility pros dump for this. You can use other tools in the sysinternal spec for this analysis. So there are lots of different options. What certification do you recommend for digital forensics in incident response? Actually, it depends, because there are different ways of certifications, and it depends on what is more important for you to get the knowledge or to get the certificate. Because if you want just to have knowledge, that's pretty cool, by the way, you can visit our course. Unfortunately, for now, we don't have like official certification, but we also have our certificates. If you're talking about certificates that are knowledgeable worldwide, you can check SANS certifications, because they also have pretty nice courses related to incident response and digital forensics, and they have valuable certifications. What else? Can you give here the direct link to the courses? Yes, I think we'll send it in the chat, so you'll get it just in a couple of seconds, minutes. We are trying to do this as fast as possible. So you'll have it now. Sorry. I have issues with scanning the QR code. Okay, so you will have the direct link. As an InfoSec analyst, if we came across any incident, what is the first step we can do to preserve evidences? That's good question as well, but here lots of information that needs to be learned before you're trying to preserve your evidences, because there are lots of some tricks and some risks that you need to know before. So if you want to have more information about incident response process, ways how to preserve evidences, how to correctly get this information, and how to analyze it in different ways, please take a look to our incident response course. I think it will be very helpful for you. Is Group IB hiring as of the moment for digital forensics and incident response positions? Yes, we are hiring, and we are hiring people worldwide. So if you're interested in such positions, please contact us. Um, you have a couple of minutes. If you still have any questions, please send us. If you don't have any questions, we'll finish it up in 2 minutes. Okay, since we are done with questions, links, like direct links to our courses are already in the chat, so you can check them out. And also, we will send these links along with the presentation and recording to our emails after webinar, so you will be able to get them from there as well. Just in case if you are not able to get them from the chat. Okay, so I think it's time to finish. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. I hope it was useful, at least a bit interesting. So please check our courses and contact me if you will have some additional questions. Have a nice day.